recently a listener asked me this question. I would love to hear more about some of your wobbles, who you were before, who you are now, where you started your brand, and what do you do when you're in the messy middle? And as I was pondering on this answer, it honestly deserves a whole entire podcast episode. And I have a feeling this will even be a 2-part series. So let's start and take, a little trip down memory lane.
Welcome to Start Somewhere, the bingeable podcast for the ambitious, self-development obsessed who know they are meant for more. More money, more freedom, more fun. Each week, I expose the sexy truths about manifestation, feminine mindset, and rituals to keep your body and lifestyle thriving. I'll show you how to move through change like it's your runway moment. Welcome to our grounded space to becoming self-obsessed and seducing your own life, where we start with the first step, not the entire staircase. Let's start somewhere together.
To think of this as a bit of a timeline, and I really am going to show you the starting steps for Start Somewhere, how we got from recording on a podcast mic in my bedroom of my parents' home in Adelaide, all the way to recording at a beautiful studio here on the Gold Coast, which is exactly where I live. So we've been through a journey, which is cliche as hell and doesn't even give it the exact words I want it to. So what a lot of people may not actually realize is that Start Somewhere started when I was working one-to-one with Georgie Stevenson. She was my coach for about 6 weeks. I did a program with her, one-to-one program, and I knew that I wanted to start something. A podcast was definitely not on my radar. I had little to no interest in starting my own podcast. However, I really had started to listen to many podcasts similar to hers and to a lot of other business and mindset-based podcasts. So upon reflection, looking back now, it's like the pieces were already there for me. And so I started doing 6 weeks of coaching with Georgie, which was such an awesome experience for myself back then in 2020. I was 23 years old, and this was when Georgie really was starting to pop off in a whole space of online creation, and I don't even know if she had started Naked Harvest yet. And so I caught up with her every single week, and we essentially would brainstorm ideas and concepts, and then she actually proposed the idea of a podcast to me. And as soon as she landed me that idea, we ran with it. And it was such a fun process, really mapping out the ideation of the show. And really, like, what started Start Somewhere? Prior to the podcast, I had started to share a lot more about my very first breakup online, and more so through the lens of mindset and how much it really started to open my eyes up and open my world up to this whole world, or how it really started to open up my mind to this whole world of mindset and things like reframing and how we can instill better habits and routines. And I was honestly just sharing my experience in my journey. And yet again, it's like we can look back. Yet again, it's like we can connect the dots when we look back. And really, I've been a storyteller since day one. I was sharing not just like trauma dumping and emotional dumping and just like blabbing. It was in a real artful, in a real tasteful way. And I even remember when I first shared the first episode of Start Somewhere, someone's feedback was essentially saying how tasteful and eloquent I shared the story through such a beautiful lens of mindset and how we can reframe, turning our biggest challenges into our biggest wins. Now, that was the first episode I ever shared on Start Somewhere. So I had told Georgie that I was sharing a lot more about breakups and mindset and just navigating through challenges on my socials. And it was from that moment we realized there is something here. I can share so much more and use that whole breakup story as like the really juicy hook, the thing that gets the people over the line, the story that really captures people's attention. And so I mapped out, I think maybe 4 or 5 of my episodes, and I went back and forth with her in Google Docs and we brainstormed new ideas. She also helped me come up with the color palette, what I wanted the album cover to look like. And Start Somewhere has definitely gone through a big branding visual journey, as I feel a lot of our personal brands are allowed to, because as we evolve, the brand can evolve as well. So it's been really special to see the brand Start Somewhere evolve so much as to what it is today. To start, it was this like dusty rose, pinky kind of color. it was giving like very soft girl. I mean, I was young. I was a child back then. I was living at home with my parents. I was working part-time at a marketing job. I was such a different version of myself right now. Whereas I feel now the brand is a lot more of that grounded, it's stable. It's like these grounding tones, like literally what I'm wearing and where I'm sitting right now. It's a lot more of those really neutral tones as well. And I feel like that's such a reflection and representation of myself and my own growth and journey. So 2020, Start Somewhere was born. I was also working part-time at an e-commerce brand called Foil Me, and the brand sold hair foils for when us ladies got our hair dyed. So I worked there part-time. They are an Adelaide-based company, a family-run business. The office was in the backyard of their house. So I worked there for a little over 18 months, and this was my very first job out of university. And the best part was, many things. First of all, the way I landed this job, I applied to it, I think through oh my God, words. So I've always been sharing content and creating online. And much before I even started podcasting and all that I'm doing now, I used to share vlogs on YouTube. And when I first applied for this job at Foil Me, as a lot of people who work in marketing do, and just I feel these days and age, they looked me up on Google and YouTube and saw my YouTube vlog. And they loved it because it showed a passion and extension for branding and content creation. So there's a little side tip there. If you are in a similar industry, the marketing, content creation, creative space, and you are looking for perhaps your first job, or maybe you're looking for your 10th job, if you can have some kind of personal brand attached to what you're doing, attached to your work, like as an accessory, that is going to be the best competitive edge for you. So they loved me for my YouTube channel. I went in for my interview and I got the job pretty much straight away. Another really highlight of being in this role is they are the company that introduced me to transcendental meditation. Now, I even went to go complete a course to learn transcendental meditation. It's not like it was part of the job description. However, my other coworkers meditated twice a day for 20 minutes every single day. And once I learned meditation, it's called TM, Transcendental Meditation, I then also got a meditation break and I would be meditating twice a day for 20 minutes. And this was the start of my whole wellness meditation journey as well. And for like context as well, I just left my first breakup the year before 2020. And then I learned meditation, and I truly know that learning meditation is what has given me just such a grounded, confident about myself, and also helped me become the most creative version of myself. And so I learned transcendental meditation. I went on to do it twice a day for 20 minutes. And what I love about this style of meditation is it's mantra meditation. So there's no guided voice, there's no music, there's no like background chatter. It's yourself and a mantra. And a mantra is essentially a sound in the form of a word. So for example, it's not like dog or cat or plant, something that once you say the word, you visually can think of something. Instead, it's like that kind of thing, like that's a mantra. So you get given this unique mantra. It's a beautiful ritual the way they give it to you as well. And you meditate. And honestly, it changed my world, and it's something that I don't do as much as I wish I did. And at the same time, it's a practice that I can always access. So that was really powerful for me in 2020. So podcast was launched, working part-time at an e-commerce business in marketing. I was a social media assistant, so like the very like grunt of a social media management role. And I was meditating. So fast forward about almost 18 months later, I resigned from that job and I was jobless for 3 months. I was unemployed. I was in a fortunate position where I had enough savings. I was living at home and I could take that risk. Essentially, I knew I wanted more in my role and that I just wasn't getting that both money-wise and also responsibility-wise. So I took 3 months off. It was over summer and it was so much fun. And during this moment is when I started working with my second coach, Carlo Cirillo. And I know a lot of my audience know me from Carlo's world as well. And I met Carlo a few months before even working one-to-one with him. And him and I instantly connected on such a beautiful friendship level. He's giving like older brother energy for me. And he essentially was doing so much of what I wanted to do in my world and my business. He was hosting a booming podcast. He had his coaching programs. He was such a big name on social media. And I knew I had a lot to learn from him. So he had a lot of family in Adelaide as well. So he would visit regularly. And one summer afternoon, we ended up catching up for a coffee. And I reckon a week later, I messaged him out of the blue and said, Carlo, can you be my mentor? We worked together for about 3 or so months, one-to-one. And I knew that that relationship we had would grow into just something so much more than just that 3-month coaching client relationship, where essentially he then had his signature program and he invited me on as a coach for the program. It didn't end there. He then saw so much in me that I knew was deep inside of me that he could really see that light. And he then called me one day and said, wait, I'm totally like jumping timelines here. He then called me one day at the end of 2021 and said, Isabel, I'm launching an app and I want you to be a part of this. So that's 2022. Before we get there, a lot happened in between. So I knew then I was ready for my next job. I knew there was more skills I had to learn when it came to social media management and marketing. I knew I wanted a coaching business. I had no idea where to start. I say this a lot with my clients who perhaps are in positions where they are still in the workforce and they do have more skills to learn. And I've got no shade and nothing bad to say about people working 9 to 5s because you are quite literally getting paid to learn. And maybe it's just the fact that I love to learn so much. When you are working in a role that's in your industry, lap that up. So I knew I wanted to start my coaching business. I had my podcast, I was posting to social media, and that's it. I then got really crystal clear on what type of job I wanted to call in. And this honestly is, I think, one of the top 3 best things I've manifested, just the way it happened to a T. So I knew I wanted a job that had an hour lunch break. In my mind, it was so I could meditate for half hour on that lunch break. I didn't meditate for that lunch break. I wanted an hour lunch break. I wanted the job to be down the road from me. Now, I live not near the city, so down the road wasn't the city. Down the road, though, was like kind of the suburb just before the city. So there were offices and buildings and opportunities. Like it was realistic. I wanted an undercover car park because I didn't want to have to walk in the rain. I've always been precious. And what else? Oh yeah, I wanted a fun young team. I wanted a team of like, more than 4 to 5 people. I wanted them fun and young. So I wrote all this down. I also got really clear what I didn't want the job to be about. And this is something that I love to tell my clients, and even anyone I'm speaking to about manifesting do as well, because it's all well and great to say, yep, I want XYZ. Do you also know what you're not available for? So I got clear on that list. And then something I say all the time is that we take 1 step, the universe takes 10 steps. So it's not a matter of just writing down your cute little manifestation list and, putting it in an envelope and sleeping it under your pillow. It's actually getting clear with yourself. What are the steps that you can take right now? So in this instant, it was me going on my LinkedIn. It was me applying for jobs. It was me updating my resume. I got really clear what was everything I could do in my power. And then one perfect summer afternoon, I'd done the work. I'd put my resume out and applied for jobs and was on LinkedIn, and I was doing everything I could think that I could do in my power. And then I got a message from someone on LinkedIn. And this person said, "Hey Isabel, I love your profile. I really am impressed by your work experience. I work at this coaching company. We would love to hire you as our social media manager." So I did not have on my list working as a social media manager at a coaching company. That was not on my list. However, when I looked at the website and everything else that the job included, it was everything I wanted to a T. It was down the road from my house. I had an undercover car park and I had an hour lunch break. I also worked with, yes, a fun young team at the time as well. So much so, one of my coworkers was actually one of my friends when I was 5 years old in primary school. So I manifested that to a T. And I know so deeply that this job was delivered into my world for a pure reason, because from that job, I essentially learnt everything to do with starting a coaching business. I learned all the back end, all the systems, the marketing, the conversion, the events, the sales, the social media, the content. I managed the podcast. I managed our content shoots, video shoots, photography, social media. I managed a whole team of people helping with the copy and the content writing and the strategy and the deliverables, like everything you could think of. And that opportunity truly came into my world to give me all the tools, all the resources, all the knowledge I need to then go start my own coaching company. And that experience was short-lived, not by choice. Some politics happened, and without getting into the finer details of things, essentially the whole Adelaide team basically got let go for certain reasons. And it was really interesting because when that happened, I had been there for 6 months. I truly felt like I had learned a plethora of knowledge and experience. And I was really upset when that job ended because it was so great. And at the same time, I knew deep down, like if I had stayed there, I would be playing it safe and keeping myself small because it was comfortable for me. I hadn't yet started my coaching business. I wasn't helping or serving any clients. I was sharing my podcast, and that's it. And so, as that job came to a close, Carlo came back into my world, and that's when he offered me the position to be one of his coaches for his programs. So I always knew I was so divinely guided and the universe had my back. So now we're at the end of 2021. I am an assistant coach for another coaching program. I have all of these tools and resources under my belt to start my own business. I had built up my savings to a really healthy amount. And granted, I was still living at my parents', so I could really take those risky moves and feel great about it. So as 2021 wrapped up, I got so serious with myself and said, I'm going all in on coaching. And when I really think back to this moment, it was so exciting and so expansive because it truly was the start of my whole online presence, like more so than my podcast. It was like the next step for me. And the thing is, I had no idea starting that podcast with Georgie Stevenson's help in 2020 would lead to starting my own coaching business. Like I didn't actually realize that's where it would take me. Upon reflection, it makes so much sense. So I made a commitment to myself at the start of 2022 that essentially I had this whiteboard in my room, this like square whiteboard, and I wrote down everything I wanted to achieve on that whiteboard for that year. I wrote launch an app, and I had not even had that conversation with Carla yet. I wrote go to Europe. I wanted to go on a Mindspo retreat, which happened to be in Cyprus, also in Europe, launch my own coaching program, and a bunch of other things. And when Carlo then called me early 2022 and said, hey, Isabel, I'm launching a wellness app and I want to co-launch it with you. I manifested that so perfectly without even realizing. When I wrote launch an app on that whiteboard, I had no clarity, desire, or knowing how. And that's the thing. It's not our job to know the how. It's our job to get clarity and then to be like, okay, what steps can I take right now that are going to then help to bring that closer to me? So, of course, it was a big fat yes when Carlo asked me to do this with him. And this really was such an epic, I want to say like stage for me in terms of my presence, my visibility, my skill set, expansion. It was phenomenal. So at the start of 2022, I knew I was going to go all in on coaching, and I invested in my very first, at the time, high level mastermind. And this was with a woman who also lives in Adelaide. And this essentially gave me, even so, more of the tools and resources to actually run my coaching business as a business. And the way I knew I was on the right track here is that, and like alignment as well, I signed my first client within 7 days of launching my coaching business in 2022. And that client, shout out to Tia. I know you're listening to this. Tia and I are still working with each other now. And it was so interesting because all I really did was plug in my podcast episodes that I was taking coaching clients. And this is how I knew that Start Somewhere, the podcast, was such a powerful runway for me and such a powerful platform for me to talk and present on, because there were people listening to my show I didn't even know were there. And it wasn't until I put in a homemade ad that I recorded at home saying, hey, I'm now taking coaching clients, link in show notes to book a call or apply or whatever the call to action was. I then got my first client in 7 days. And I share this to show you what's possible when you start to move with such a razor clear intention in your world. So magnetic marketing has always worked so well for me. And this is essentially attraction marketing, attraction sales. And I'm actually going to do a whole episode more on storytelling through the lens of attraction marketing and attraction sales, because it's so much of how we can call in those soul-aligned clients and opportunities and collaborations that I know you want to call in as well. So 2022 was an epic year, not only for myself, also for my business. So I had launched my coaching business, signed my first client, was starting to sign a lot more clients all through my coaching, all through my podcast, also through the app I was a part of launching as well, which is called Sala. So I was flying to Melbourne quite frequently. We did a soft launch party. We did the official launch party. We had a Sala podcast. We did a lot. It was so much fun. And it was just, such a cool time. Like, how old was I? 25, I think it was. And I was just flying to Melbourne nonstop, getting these amazing opportunities, staying in really cool hotels, just doing really cool stuff. As a 25-year-old, my first year as an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I've created this all for myself. So at the end of 2022, in the summer, or in the spring, I should say, I went to Europe. I went to Spain, I went to Morocco, and I went to Cyprus, and I did a Mindspo meditation and manifestation retreat. Oh my gosh, this was such a big deal for me because attending a Mindspo retreat had been on my radar for 3 or 4 years before. And it just didn't happen for whatever reason at the time. It was always on my vision board. And as I made such a promise to myself, 2022 is the year that I make anything I want happen. So not only was I launching my business, launching an app, signing coaching clients left, right, and center, I went to Europe for 3 weeks. And it was the last time I've been to Europe, which is so sad. And I had such a phenomenal experience. I did a Top Deck tour, which is a tour company with maybe 10 or 11 other similar age people to myself. And it's also where I met my previous housemate as well. So it's just the way things come full circle into your life, not to mention attending this meditation and manifestation retreat in Cyprus. Oh my gosh. Cyprus, yet again, was never really on my radar, and it should be on everyone's radar. Think Bali, yet Europe, just more elevated. And I met the coolest people there as well because it's so far away from Australia. I met so many people from the US and the UK, and it's so cool to still be in contact with quite a few of them. I've had Sam on my show, and I met her at that Mindspo retreat as well. She's an Airbnb content creator, and we connected there, and I just made such cool connections with so many like-minded women from the UK and from the US. So cool. I then launched my first group mastermind when I returned back from Europe. Things were going so well. I was so locked in. I was so focused. I was getting such phenomenal results. And then at the end of 2022, I started to get the inkling that I had to stop it all for some reason. Tune in to next week's podcast to find out so much more about why I stopped everything and what really happened behind the scenes, and also to follow the rest of my timeline journey that I'm sharing with you on the podcast. If you receive value from this episode, it's time to apply what you've heard. And if you're ready to take this further and work together at a deeper level, all the links to join my signature programs are in the show notes. Explore my website to learn more. Otherwise, I'd love to see you listening. So take a screenshot and share this episode to your Instagram stories and tag me at isabel.startsomewhere and at startsomewhere.podcast. Let's start somewhere together.